All right, Rosie. Rosie, where are you from originally? Where'd you grow up?
Los Angeles, California.
Los Angeles.
Yeah. I
Tell me about
moved
your family. You had mom and dad?
mom and dad. Yeah, I had both parents. They're both born and raised Mexico. They came over here and then they met, had us. I'm the youngest of four.
How would you describe your childhood?
Uh a little confusing. My earliest memory was my mom telling me not to be left alone with my dad. I didn't understand why then, of course I do now, but that was the start of
Your mom told you not to,
be left alone with my dad.
really?
You know, if she left the room, I should be right behind her, you know? That's what she told me.
Mm.
Yeah. So early on, everything was fine. Like aside from like the abuse with my dad, my mom she's very quiet, you know, she's not very affectionate, but for like, you know, Christmas, birthdays, you know, she always provided. We always had food, clothes, but we were financially struggling a couple times, but she was really good at hiding it. Our first house, I believe we went bankrupt a couple times. She had a lot of money problems. I feel like she was very depressed and angry. She has her own trauma. So, and my dad didn't help at all too, you know. He's a typical Hispanic man. He didn't speak English, but he was abusive to her mentally, sometimes physically. When she was pregnant with my youngest sister, he actually pulled a gun out on her and threatened to kill her in front of my mom's mom, my grandma. Yeah. You know, growing up, there was always arguing. You know, that was normal. Yeah, I grew up pretty angry. You know,
You mentioned there was abuse with your dad, but you didn't tell me what kind of abuse.
um, I have really bad, well, not memory, but like with the trauma, it's funny how it blocks out some parts. Like the first experience I had with him, you know, my mom and him would talk a lot on their bed in Spanish, and I would always eavesdrop and like try to listen to what they were saying. So one time she had left the room, and I remember being small, like I could barely climb on top of their bed. And I remember the shirt I was wearing, it's like a little white shirt with the little bow ties in the front. And right when she left the room, you know, his eyes changed. You know, I recognize those eyes now, but, you know, I didn't know what it was then. And my mom used to give me like back scratches and like rubs so I can go to sleep. I called it like tickles. I liked that. And he asked me to get in the bed with him. I didn't think anything of it. So I got into the bed with him, and you know, I was facing laid down. That's how it started. You know, he was doing that. And then he turned me around and he lifted up my shirt. He was like tickling my stomach. And then, you know, then he started touching my chest and like touching my nipples. And I remember him, you know, lifting up the blanket, and he told me to go under the blanket. And, you know, I was small. I was like right by his stomach maybe. And that's when I don't remember anything else. A lot of like situations like that, I can remember the beginning and the end. Like I remember afterwards getting under the blanket, and I remember being sweaty and from being under the blanket, and I remember just jumping off the bed. And he told me, "Where are you going?" And I said, "Oh, I'll be right back." And I left the room. There's a lot of situations like that. Like my mom would always leave the kitchen light on, like a little night light. And I used to be scared of the dark. You know, I would pee the bed a lot. Sign of sexual abuse. But this time I had two other sisters, and this time they slept on the top bunk. We all shared one room. So this night I remember my back was facing the door, and the light peeked in a little. My mom would leave the door open a little, and I could see the light, you know, reflect on the wall where I was facing. And I remember seeing the door open, you know, through the light, and I thought it was my mom. I didn't want to get into trouble, so, you know, I was still laying still, closed my eyes to pretend to go to sleep, and I kept my eyes closed the whole time. I felt someone sit on the bed with me, and they took the blanket off. I remember being cold, and they pulled my pants down, and then I felt cold hands, pulling. I remember feeling my underwear get taken off of me, and then again, I just blacked out. I don't remember anything, but a lot of it was like that, like more of the serious stuff. I don't know how far it went. Like
have you talked to a therapist about?
Yeah, I'm in therapy right now, but he had told me something like, even if you do remember, is that going to benefit you in any way? Because I told him, I'm almost angry that I can't remember because I don't know. I want to know almost how far it went. I don't like not knowing what happened to me. But yeah.
Did your sisters get the same treatment?
My oldest sister didn't. I have a sister who's a year older than me, and when she was a baby, about 2 to 3 years old, I didn't know this at the time until I was way older. I don't know the extent of it either, but there was a report on him. My mom found her shaking, and I don't know if she was raped or, but there was a case, and my mom dropped it because she had asked my sister when she was 2 or 3 years old, do you forgive daddy? And she said yes. So that's what she told me. She forgave her. The only reason I came out, I did end up coming out and telling my mom about what happened to me, because my oldest sister, I was 17 at the time. My sister was she's like 5 years older than me. I can't really do the math, but she had her first baby in 2019. So in 2020, around July, she was a little bit older, she's a baby. She could barely sit up now, and I still haven't said anything that's happened to me. And I remember seeing my dad hold her baby, and that look came back that he would give the baby. So we had went on this trip to see my aunt in Bakersfield, and I remember on the way home, I couldn't stop thinking about it, and my sister and the baby and my mom were in the car. And I just brought it up. I told her, there's something I have to tell you. And I had told her, I don't know, I don't remember much, but, this is what's been going on. And it didn't stop even when I was older. I was just, it was less frequent. But, there was times where, my mom would be in the room, and he would come home from work, and he would come over me. Sorry. He would kiss on my neck and grope me and in front of her, and I would tell him stop touching me in front of my mom, and she would turn around and he would stop, and she'd be like, what are you doing? My mom would just think he was hugging me, and I grew up so angry. I didn't like anyone touching me. She thought he was just hugging me, and she would tell him leave her alone, what are you doing? And he would just laugh. His fucking laugh is still in my head all the time, that he would do it in front of her right in front of her. So when I had told my mom what happened, she was crying because, it happened to my sister and it was going on with me. And my oldest sister was crying too, they were hurting for me. And my mom promised me that I would never have to see him again. And, sorry. She promised me, and she did end up kicking him out for a month, and she was still seeing him, and it turned out he didn't feel good, and she went to the hospital with my dad, and he had some sort of tumor in his stomach, and he was sick after leaving. And I remember her coming home, and my sister, who's a year older than me, she was living with her boyfriend. She wasn't there, but my oldest sister, who wasn't affected, and my brother, who were there, we're all there. My mom's crying, and she says, I have something to tell you guys, your dad's sick. I don't know if it was cancer, I don't remember, but I remember the first thing I thought was, thank God, after all this time, he's finally getting his karma, And I didn't cry at all. I was almost happy, and I see my brother and my sister crying, and my mom's crying, and I'm like, why are you guys crying over this piece of shit? And she looked at me and she said, you know what this means? And I was like, what are you talking about? And she said, he's coming back. I can't let him be out on the street. And I was angry, he gets sick, and then he gets the princess treatment of just coming back. It wasn't fair, and I didn't have support. Like, my oldest sibling and my sister, of course, they wanted him back, and my sister, who also dealt with the same things as me, she was already out of the house. Like, I felt alone. I felt small, and before he came back, my sister ended up moving back in with me, and we confronted my mom. We said, why are you allowing him back here? And it was in front of my oldest sister too, who wasn't affected. And I told her, I basically blamed her, and I said, this is your fault. This happened to me because you allowed him back into the house after what he did to my sister, and you thought you were safe, and he did the exact same thing, maybe even more to me, because it was just one time with my sister. And my oldest sister, sorry, I told her, this is your fault, and my oldest sister got up and she's like, don't you talk to our mom that way. She's cussing me out. She's like, you're so disrespectful. You don't deserve to tell her that, because I told her she was a bad mom. And my oldest sister defending her, and me and my sister are just looking at each other like, what the fuck is wrong with them? I spoke up to protect her child. My brother has a daughter too. I did it for them. I would have never said anything. Sorry. So 2020, up until this year, I had to live with this man. And I told my mom, like, my concerns, I don't feel safe here. And she tells me, just lock your door. Nothing's gonna happen. And I was supposed to graduate in 2020. I was still in school. I had a job. I was working. And living like that, I didn't graduate high school. I dropped out. COVID hit. I stopped working. I was really depressed. I slept so much. And my mom wasn't nice to me anymore. Before she had brought him back in, I remember seeing her sneak out, and, I'm not disrespectful at all. I defend my mom with my life. And this was like the time where she started cussing at me and disrespecting me. Like, I saw her leaving the house once, and I knew she was gonna go see my dad. And I had asked her, like, where are you going? And she told me to shut the fuck up, to mind my business. I don't know. I love my mom, even to this day, But, like, during that time when I wasn't working or going to school, she was paying for everything, and I guess that's her way of showing love. But that doesn't make me feel loved. Sorry.
How is your dad now?
He's still the same. He treats her bad. My sister and my brother still bring the kids around him. I would never stay home. My mom was pretty strict with curfews, and I wasn't working. I didn't have money to go out, but I would go out at every chance I got, whether it was a friend's house, whether it was a random dude's house. Like, I didn't care. And that's what my mom thought the problem was, me living there, the curfew. That wasn't what it was about. I started doing drugs. I was doing psychedelics, Molly. I was doing Molly every fucking day, even when I was there at home. I would never sleep. And she caught me once, and she said, "You're not sleeping. You think I'm stupid. I know you're doing something." And I was like, "No, I'm not doing anything." And no matter how much I would tell her, like, or it's this that's hurting me. She told me, tell me the truth, like, what's going on with you? I'll tell her, and she'll be like, oh, we'll get you a therapist, like, you'll be fine. And it's like, I can't, no matter how much therapy I have, even living there, it's not going to help me when my abuser's in the same home. I don't care if I don't see him often, I'm making food and I hear him opening the door, I run to my room so I don't have to look at him, because he still has the balls to look at you or me in my eye, Like, I'm uncomfortable with myself now. Like, he would comment on my body. And he was a creep. Like, even that's what makes me upset about with my older sisters. Like, we couldn't wear shorts in the house because he would look. And my mom would tell us that. We would confront him, we would all come to my mom at different ages, like, he's still looking at us, and in front of her too. Like, it wasn't a glance, like, you walked and his head was turning, fucking looking at your ass. Like, it was ridiculous. And she did nothing. He said that we were lying all the time. Like, I remember I couldn't even take a nap. Like, I love sleeping. And this was like in middle school almost. I remember sleeping in shorts. It was hot. And I can't even do that without this fucking weirdo creeping in, and I wake up and he's fucking staring at me, like, looking through the door, like, it's ridiculous. He liked scaring me. He was like, if I slept, the way he would wake me up is dragging me by my feet, like, towards him. And obviously I'm waking up fucking like, don't. My mom thinks money's power. Like, she knows living alone is hard. And I left like once or twice for a couple days, and then she begs me, please come back. But this time I didn't really care where I ended up. I was so fed up with her being there. I left with nothing, no money, no nothing. I was grateful for my friend Michaela, my best friend. She let me stay at her house for a couple months. And from there, I found a nice program. Hope of the Valley, there's shelter. So I am homeless, but that's where I'm staying right now. And they help so much with education, therapy, even job, employment, food, clothes. And I've never felt more free than being there. And, I thought that's how life was. And I had to endure that. I didn't have money, so I had to stay there. And that's not how it is. My dad thought he had all the balls in the house because he had money, he was the provider. And I think that's why my mom would string him around all the time.
How old are you now?
I'm 20. I'm turning 21 November.
Still super young. Do you know any history of what your mom went through, or your dad, when they were young?
My dad, no, I don't know. He doesn't really talk about his past much. I know his dad was hard on him, but my mom, her and her sister, ironically, they had her oldest brother. They're a family of 7, big family, and they're the 2 youngest daughters. Her abuser was her brother, and I would expect her to know better. She also dealt with him when she was really young. And again, her family, for both of the sisters, turned their backs, didn't say anything. He was welcomed all the time. And even growing up, it was pushed aside. We would sleep over his house. And, like, even growing up, I didn't understand why. Like, I heard it mentioned a few times, and it would be, shushed. And my mom lost her dad in 2019. And I remember there was problems because it's a long story, but he was in a retirement home or, like, nursing home, and he was assaulted and he had a brain bleeding, like a hemorrhage, I think. And they were suing the place, and of course, my mom was the only one that visited her, and then all her brothers came, and they were trying to, take power over him to find out what happened to the money, because it was all about money. And my mom's brother, the abuser, he has a new wife, and she doesn't know anything about this. So at the hospital, some of them don't get along, and it was tossed out. They called him a rapist, and his wife was there, and it was funny. It was funny at the time because I don't like this man, and he's a man of God now. He's in church every day, but it's sad how common all of this is. And even my cousins, like, none of them even knew about this. Like, I told a few of them, and they're like, my parents never told me. It's like they all know, and we're still going to family gatherings and having, it's just wrong. And my mom still heard about it today, like when there's family events and stuff, she goes, oh, I don't know why they're inviting him. Her younger sister, she took action. She separated herself, and she talks for herself, and she's way more confident. And my mom, I feel like my mom is just so used to being set aside that she doesn't fight for herself anymore. And sometimes when she did mention it, even to my other sister, we'd be like, how are you bothered by it? He's going to be there. You have to see his face, but you're bringing your husband around us. And she would always talk about forgiveness. Like, you need to forgive him. He's your father. And I'm like, okay, well, you need to forgive your brother then, because he's your brother, right? It makes no sense to me. It's disgusting.
What are your plans from here on out?
I don't know. Right now, the program I'm in, they helped me get an apartment with my sister. I'm really thankful for. I just need a job, and I hope to figure out, what I want to do career-wise. Still going to go to therapy after I leave the shelter, but right now I'm just taking it day by day.
You're angry at both your parents.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad that I'm more angry at my mom than my abuser. Because I just want to be heard. And I feel like that's all I want from my, my other two siblings. That my sister told me, he doesn't remember. So, get over it. And she denied saying that to me, and my other sister heard it, and she's like, you did say that to me. She never apologized for it. She said, no, I didn't. And she's like, when I had moved out, she told me, oh, I see that your friends are more than family, good luck with your friends. Let's see how long that lasts, and I'm like, I'd rather have no family. You guys are all mean to me. You guys don't understand me, and you get upset when I turn or I leave away from the people who are causing me so much pain. My friends, or the few that I have supported me more than any of you. My best friend's mom, Michaela, her name's Molly. I'm very thankful for her, She's like the mother I never had, basically. So kind. She's a strong woman too. And I'm just thankful, for the few people that I have that, they help me get through all of this. Now, I'm not 100% now, but day by day.
What emotions are you dealing with most?
Probably anger or regret. I feel very angry with myself because, I get depressed a lot, and I feel like I use the past as an excuse. Like, I don't want to go to work today because I'm tired. I let a lot of opportunities slide because I feel almost lazy. I can get my GED or do a high-set test, at the place I'm at right now, but I have zero motivation for anything.
What are your regrets?
I regret not. I have a lot of regrets, but the main two is not speaking up sooner about what was happening to me, because my sister had to stay in silence too. And maybe it would have changed something, maybe it wouldn't, but I wish I said something so we didn't have to go on for so long in silence. I felt like I basically was her voice too. You know, they did the same thing to her. It was brushed off, and ever since I came out and, you know, told them what happened to me, she took the step too and finally cut him off. We haven't spoken to him in almost 3 years. And my sister is not in contact with any of them right now. She has a lot of anger. And I feel bad because, you know, it was probably suppressed from all this time, and I had to be that example, and I feel bad. I wish I said something sooner.
What's your biggest fear now?
Probably being a parent. I was pregnant in August. Obviously, my situation, I'm not ideal to be a mom right now, you know. I'm homeless. So I didn't go through with it, and that's one of my regrets, you know. I felt like I still don't have motivation for myself, but I was actually excited at one point, you know. I was debating what to do, but, you know, I just thought it wasn't best for me right now. But I do regret that. I felt like, not to be cliche, but I really felt like that was a sign for me, you know, to have motivation at least for someone, because I know I'd be a great mom, but I'm scared of that. And I felt like that was a sign for me, you know. But again, I let that go, and I regret that.
Rosie, what would you say is the most important lesson you've learned from all of this?
I was dreading this question. I don't know. I really don't know. I was thinking about this for a lot, and I don't
You're
have...
still in the middle of it, too.
Yeah. I don't have an answer.
It's all right.
Sorry.
Well, I wish you all the luck in the world. You deserve it.
Thank you.
I think getting away from home is probably the best thing you can do.
Yeah. I'm happy. I'm free.
Something good will come your way.
I hope so. Thank you.
All right, Rosie. Thank you.